requires certain actors who kind of initiate the policies, certain actors who set the agenda, certain actors who implement it, and certain actors who evaluate it, for sure. I agree with all of you. But there is something also missing here. Please.
So a human being, the Sharia of Allah, which is the way, the Islamic way of life, if you wish, without getting too much into the law and all of that, is here to preserve a number of things about a human being. الدين والنفس والعقل والعرض والمال.
When you want to make a decision, it would be more fitting for Shura is to invite the heads of those units. Come together, Majlis Shuyukh, the Shuyukh Qabila. Let us look at a concrete example, because this could be dazzling, right? Let us come down to earth. Now, before come down to earth, say something about what we said, purposes. You have divine purposes. The divine purposes were embodied in the text, meaning they are inside the text.
By the way, this is what we have to do. If you are studying public policy in Islam, this is one of the first things that we have to be working on. How to enrich this Western, rational, and conventional understanding of policy analysis from our perspective.
And let's face the reality. There is no going back. You aren't going to be able to close social media. You aren't going to be able to close Pandora's box. And saying that, there is a lot of opportunity. I think this is a really, really exciting time.
I know that many people before me, or some people before me, spoke to you about public policy. But just some kind of reiteration or repetition wouldn't be bad at all. Here, a very mysterious concept, legality. What's legality in international relations? Who decides it? The powerful or the right? Also a message of tolerance. It is basically like, there is no obligatory role over Muslims to ideologize the entire world according to Islam.
They're trying to actually inspire the world through their kind of ideas. It's a 115-page document. And each page, I mean, I can show you.
Paradigms, these models into policies. It's very important. It's very important because we need to go beyond, of course, the peace theology or theology of peace. We need to go even beyond all these kind of nice theoretical models, frameworks. You should love each other, change the culture, do this, promote certain, educate kids. Yes, but in terms of concrete, measurable policies. What could be? My question is this relevant to Muslim communities? Why did I select a topic on conflict resolution? Is that relevant to us? Over the last 50 years, so there is an improvement. All right, over the last 50 years. In 1970s, if the 10 countries with biggest achievements are excluded, topped by Indonesia, we will find that most countries' stock of human capital is below 10 million, size of population. Let's take it as size.
The Islamic country is the only Muslim population country that could be a full member of EU. And our research always indicates that Turkey's increasing positive perception in the Middle Eastern countries and the MENA countries have also to do with Turkey's full accession with the EU. Because Turkey now is exactly going to become a bridge between Europe and the rest. Kind of a transmission between these countries and John Dewey. As he put it, pragmatic means, you read the situation correctly, you read the developments correctly, and you take decisions in terms of what you can do and what you cannot do.
You might have seen it before. It's been used by a famous economist in the States for his presentations, and it's from an article in the BBC. Okay, this is a picture of students in Africa in a country called Guinea, which is a Muslim majority country. And they're studying for their examinations under the street lights next to the capital city's airport. Okay, and the reason why they're doing that is because they don't have electricity in their own homes. For me, this picture presents a really, really fascinating puzzle. There's a general agreement on the primary sources, so although it's a bit difficult to say an Islamic perspective, but we have some basis for saying that. Another source you can look at is look at what the classical Islamic scholars said of the past. And I found that a lot of the big names in classical Islamic thought, such as Ghazali and Ibn Taymiyyah, they've talked about infrastructure in their writings. A couple of questions. And when we talk about infrastructure as a policy sector, we covered many of these questions today, but these are sort of the big questions that are often asked. How can we use infrastructure services to advance society? How can we deliver equitable services? How do we sustain the natural environment?